Here's the thing, affordability can be a trap. The 10 cities we're about to tour look like steals compared to 358,000 national typical values. But the price tags are a symptom of deeper problems. We'll show maps of once thriving coal seams, steel corridors, and rail lines, then cut to vacant storefronts and expanding inventory. Rates hover, sellers cut prices, and listings linger. Sounds like opportunity, right? But here's the catch. Without job growth, infrastructure upgrades, appreciation can stall for years. Watch on if you want the full story before you make a move you can't unwind. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Number 1. Erie. Waterfront condo under $200,000 feels like a cheat code. Why is it still sitting? Because Erie's price tag is the appetizer, not the meal. Here's the thing. The lake is gorgeous, the sunsets slap, and yet buyers scroll past like it's an expired coupon. Erie used to flex. The lakefront ran shipbuilding, rail, and those GE transportation paychecks that made mortgages feel light. That swagger-funded neighborhoods, bars, little league teams, real civic energy. But here's the catch. When manufacturing offshored and GE downsized, the port tried to pivot to tourism. Festivals, brew pubs, marina upgrades, good vibes, not union wages. Pull a map overlay. In 1950, you've got cranes, rail yards, and humming docks. Today, you've got tasting rooms and empty second floors over storefronts, waiting for tenants who never quite sign. It looks revitalized on a Saturday night and hollow on Tuesday at noon. Now the data story. Since 2000, population has slid, which shrinks the buyer pool. Median home prices look friendly against regional incomes, but days on market stretch longer than they did 5 years ago. Listings sit, then they get a haircut, then another. Sellers chase demand that keeps easing away, and winter taxes everything. Lake effect snow is a whole personality. Heating bills fatten up, ice chews through roofs and windows, furnaces age out at the worst time. The housing stock, old, cheap to buy, pricey to own. You save on the sticker and hand it back to the roofer, the HVAC tech, and the window guy. Mortgage rates whipsaw, and Erie feels each twitch. And price cuts show up like calendar reminders. That $199,000 waterfront unit? It's not just competing with other condos, it's competing with the fear of repairs and the math of winter, insurance, heating costs, deferred maintenance, and surprise assessments that spook cautious buyers. So, is this a seasonal lull or a structural stall? Look at jobs. The rebound hasn't hit the scale that moves a market. Without broad payroll growth, demand doesn't surge. And without demand, appreciation crawls, leaving sellers negotiating against time, carrying costs, and shifting buyer psychology. Number 2, Johnstown. You can buy a house for the price of a used Civic. There's a reason. Johnstown's discount isn't a glitch. It's the receipt for a whole era that ended and never reopened for business. This city was steel. Cambria iron, then Bethlehem steel. Smokestacks wrote the skyline and paychecks kept neighborhoods tight. When that system unraveled, the core identity went with it. Post-1980s, the mills went quiet, jobs thinned, and the famous floods didn't just damage homes, they nudged people to leave. Every departure shaved the tax base a little thinner until services started creaking. Pull up the old mill photos next to a current aerial. You see massive works where thousands clocked in, now replaced by vacant parcels and commercial corridors that never filled back in. Blocks go dark at 6 p.m. Not because people don't care, but because there aren't enough people to keep storefronts lit. Here's the thing. Since 2000, labor force participation has sagged. Fewer working-age residents, fewer people chasing the listings. Property tax delinquency climbed, which signals owners falling behind and the city losing fuel for basic repairs. And those repairs? Aging infrastructure needs expensive upgrades, but funding gaps stall projects year after year. You feel it in the streets, the pipes, the public buildings that wait their turn. Patched, postponed, and quietly deteriorating while costs compound. Now the housing math. A century-old two-story looks cheap until you price the roof, the mechanicals, and the lead and plaster surprises hiding behind every wall. Median rents in town are low enough that your spreadsheet cap rate looks great at first glance. Then vacancies stretch. Turns get frequent. 1 month empty wipes out all those paper returns. The illusion fades fast when the rent can't carry the rehab, taxes, insurance, and rising maintenance. Investors ask about grants. Yes, some money flows in, but the scope is huge and the pace is slow. You're trying to rebuild a system with band-aids while the patient keeps moving. The result is selective wins on single blocks and long pauses everywhere else, where momentum stalls and confidence never quite sticks. Number 3, Scranton. Scranton's list prices look friendly, but why do buyers keep negotiating down? Because the sticker says welcome, and the inspection says bring a contractor and a lawyer. You see a $260,000 median list and think, finally. Then the math starts fighting back. Closing credits, deferred maintenance, insurance riders, and reserves for systems that haven't been touched in decades. Here's the thing. Anthracite coal built the electric city. Streetcars, ornate banks, opera houses, the whole early 20th century flex. When coal collapsed, the service economy and logistics moved in. Work exists, but wages don't echo the old days, and the public budget keeps feeling that mismatch. Higher property tax millage sneaks in to plug school gaps, and that flows straight into monthly payments, squeezing affordability long after the offer is accepted. Pull up a coal seam, overlay next to a modern map of price cuts. Those historic breaker sites cluster near today's discount corridors. Blocks with the prettiest brick also carry the most needs work tags. You scroll through reductions like it's coupon season, and it keeps going week after week until sellers recalibrate expectations to reality. Now, the affordability twist. That median list around $260,000 meets households that earn less than what those payments plus taxes demand, especially when you add repairs. So buyers push back. They shave 5, 10, sometimes more. Not because they're ruthless, but because underwriting and insurance tell them to. Inventory climbed. Buyers got picky. Old row homes greet you with knob and tube wiring, ancient boilers, and windows that whistle every nor'easter. Deferred maintenance is the main character. Appraisers call out safety and livability fixes, and FHA and VA deals trip on peeling paint, railings, and GFCI requirements. Contracts stall, extensions pile up, days on market stretch compared to the last cycle. The share of listings with price reductions rose as sellers chase what the loan and the inspection will tolerate. It's not drama. It's the grind of an older housing stock meeting, cautious lending, and tighter household budgets. So yes, Scranton pulls eyeballs. The cost of living looks manageable on paper, but here's the catch. Carry costs creep. Taxes, utilities, and drafty homes, and the steady drip of repairs eat the monthly cushion. Wage growth lags, so absorption slows. The pool of buyers who can handle both the note and the rehab is smaller than the listing count suggests. Mini payoff? The deal is real, but the upside is slow. Appreciation crawls unless job growth outruns the repair bills and tax pressure. Head downstate to a rail and factory city that traded Reading Railroad fame for retail wages and a tougher mortgage math. Number 4. Reading. The Reading Railroad is a monopoly square for a reason. The factories are gone, the mortgages aren't. Reading still sells the vibe of classic row homes and corner stores, but the old paycheck that made those notes easy has left the chat. What remains is a housing stock priced for an economy that no longer fully exists, creating friction at every closing table. Reading's belt once churned out hosiery, hardware, and everything in between. Neighborhoods were stitched tight around shifts and trolley lines. You could walk from a brick row to a mill whistle in 5 minutes and still make it home for dinner. That layout still exists. The jobs that justified it don't, and neither do the benefits that smoothed family budgets. When the mills faded, retail and warehousing stepped in. Distribution centers popped up along the highway. Work came back, just lighter on wages. So you've got more clock-ins, but fewer buyers who can stretch for a renovation and a rising tax bill. That mismatch sits under every affordable listing in town, quietly capping prices. Pull the historic map of trolley lines and mills, then layer today's logistics hubs. You'll see cavernous buildings repurposed into storage, not offices with salaried staff. Downtown, plenty of beautiful shells that need cash before they can host actual tenants. It's a museum of potential that bills by the month, draining owners while they wait. Let's talk numbers without drowning you in them. Incomes crawled while housing costs crept. Foreclosures and tax sales spike in certain tracts, and code violations stack up on blocks where porches sag and paint flakes. That's not moral failure, it's the math of old houses meeting thin wallets. Entry prices tease you, then the checklist hits. Lead-safe compliance if you plan to rent. Railings to code. Porch columns that aren't just decorative. Electrical grounded, not mystery knob and tube. Each fix is a few grand. Stack a few and you've got a second mortgage hiding inside the first. Sellers cut when rates jerk higher because the buyer pool here is sensitive. A quarter point knocks real people out of underwriting. Appraisers flag condition, comps don't carry the value, and you get an appraisal gap that no one wants to bridge. Deals fall apart on a Tuesday over peeling paint and a bulky furnace. Investors churn flips with lipstick-level upgrades and quick exits. Owner-occupants run into affordability ceilings. Taxes, insurance, utilities, and drafty homes. Without higher-wage employers, values bounce in a narrow band. It's not a dramatic crash, it's a slow leak you only notice when the bucket fills. Next stop, a boomtown built on timber and oil-era wealth that now lives for baseball season, while the pipeline of buyers thins out the rest of the year. Number 5, Williamsport. A charming Victorian under $180,000 near the ball fields sounds perfect. Why the long wait to sell? Because the curb appeal hooks you, then the calendar ghosts you. It sits, it relists. It takes a price haircut and then another, like clockwork. Days on market quietly stretch while sellers refresh photos and hope timing. Not fundamentals is the problem. Here's the thing. Williamsport was built on timber money and later niche manufacturing, and the civic pride is real. Parades, tournaments, the whole small city heartbeat. But the buyer pipeline isn't a parade. It's a trickle sensitive to rates, seasons, and a thin layer of qualified locals. Youth chase bigger metros where salaries climb faster. Student numbers swing with program changes and housing policies, so the rental demand you're counting on can vanish between semesters. The job ladder here has rungs, just not many of them. If you're mid-career and ambitious, you run out of steps quick, and relocation becomes the promotion. Pull the old river logging photos in your head and set them next to today's festival maps. You'll see bright dots where the crowds gather and then pockets of chronic vacancy a few blocks out. It's a tale of two grids. Lively on event days, quiet enough to hear your own footsteps the rest of the week, where for sale signs linger. Let's talk structure. The housing stock skews older than the paychecks can comfortably maintain. Median incomes don't stretch to cover 100-year-old roofs, drafty windows, and a furnace that taps out mid-January. Population growth since 2000 hasn't delivered more buyers, and that shows up in how long listings hang around and how often they trim the ask. Tourism gives you a sugar rush. Big games, hotel bookings, packed diners, then it's back to normal. Sellers meet a thin pool of buyers who want move-in ready at starter home prices, and the rest wait for the next season like it's a marketing plan. Days on market expand when the leaves change. You see a second wave of reductions in the off-season, and a chunk of listings withdraw only to reappear later at lower numbers. It's like a yard sale that keeps getting extended to Sunday afternoon. Here's the catch. Infrastructure upgrades lag. Step outside the core and the broadband drops from remote work to send a carrier pigeon. That alone knocks out a whole class of buyers who could afford to pay and stay. Mini payoff. When demand is episodic, prices sag. A low price here isn't a hidden gem. It's a message, coal country again, where hillside duplexes trade like used iPhones. Number 6, Hazleton. New warehouses everywhere. So why are resale home prices still soft? Because the skyline says growth, but the paychecks say not enough. It's real. It's happening. Square footage is booming faster than household balance sheets, and housing feels that lag immediately. Hazleton pivoted from coal to distribution. Drive the ridgelines and you'll see warehouse roofs stretching like airport runways. Forklifts hum, night shifts run, and loading bays glow under LEDs. The land is busy. The equity? Not so much. Appreciation needs buyers with margin, not just motion. But here's the catch. Jobs exist, but many pay modest wages. A lot of workers commute in, grab a Wawa coffee, and drive those paychecks back out. That diffuses spending power. Local Main Street doesn't see the bump, and resale demand doesn't surge. Retail follows rooftops, not trucks. Pull a mental map. Industrial parks ring the bypass. Downtown's got pretty facades with too many for-lease signs. Truck routes slice right past residential blocks, which makes some streets louder, dustier, and harder to sell at top dollar. You can have logistics, or you can have quiet porches. Rarely both, and buyers notice. Let's break it down. Logistics rolls are steady, but they don't match the old mining checks. Inventory stays higher than the buyer pool can swallow, so sellers trim. Then trim again. Price cuts become part of the listing strategy, not the exception. It's like a slow auction that never quite ends, with each cut testing the floor. Housing stock skews older. You get 1920s bones, but you also get roofs at end of life, suspect wiring, and windows that leak heat like a broken thermos. Renovation costs collide with working class budgets and rate spikes. Every $1,000 in repairs knocks someone out of underwriting. Rates jump, and first-time buyers step back. FHA shows up more than runs into condition calls. Peeling paint, handrails, GFCI, the usual suspects. Appraisal issues stall contracts, extensions stack, deals die over small stuff that costs real money in an old house. Investors try to scoop low-cost rentals. On paper, the cap rate looks spicy. Then the furnace fails, the sewer line backs up, and turnover eats 2 months of rent. CapEx turns the deal into a break-even. Let that sink in. So here's the thing. Modern jobs without modern pay equals values that grind sideways. A little slip when rates rise. A little lift when they fall. Mostly flat. If you're buying for momentum, this market puts you on a treadmill. Now to a steel suburb that lost its anchor and never found a new center. Number 7, McKeesport. Near Pittsburgh, yet a different planet in price. How? Because the zip code math says metro, but the paycheck map says no-go. You see a ranch for less than a year of rent in the city and think, steal. Then the fine print shows up. Here's the thing. McKeesport thrived on National Tube and the whole Monongahela steel chain. Rivertown, union paychecks, whole blocks bought with overtime, and a handshake at the Union Hall. When steel fell, the grid didn't bend, it hollowed. Streets that once pulsed with shift changes now go quiet by dinner time. But here's the catch. Proximity to Pittsburgh doesn't fix a local job drought. You can drive to tech jobs, you can't teleport past blight. Empty lots replace mill sheds. Boarded duplexes sit like placeholders. Pull up a 1940s mill photo next to a current street view and it's whiplash. And the busway, routes stop just shy of where consistent access would actually help buyers without cars. Let's break it down. Population freefall shrinks the buyer pool. Tax delinquency stacks up and starves the budget. Code enforcement carries a heavy caseload, and that means more red tags before you even swing a hammer. Crime trends thin the applicant list for both renters and lenders. It's a feedback loop that drags on comps. Rehab math kills deals. Roofs, porches, and basements that take on water. Foundation piers. Utility separations for duplexes, so you can rent both sides legally. By the time you add electrical, plumbing, and egress, your after-repair value is gasping to catch up. Lenders see that gap and hesitate. Insurance quotes jump in high claim zips, turning a low mortgage into a high monthly. A RV versus rehab costs? On paper, you're close. In real life, you're over. Supply chains delay materials. Labor bids come in hot. Your contingency burns before drywall. Meanwhile, buyers with solid incomes just aim 15 minutes north, where the comps are stronger and the inspection lists are shorter. So regional growth happens, but it glides right over these blocks. Micro markets don't lift just because the metro headline looks good. Appreciation needs jobs, safety, and services on the same street as your front door. The commute alone isn't enough. Mini payoff? Values languish when the job's left and the risk stays. That's why the price is low. The rail city next door fought to reinvent, but keeps running on older tracks. Number 8, Altoona. Big porches, low prices, mountain views. What's missing? Buyers with big paychecks. The house looks like a postcard. The offer looks like a layup. Then the earnings in town whisper, not shout. Here's the thing. Altoona's rail shops were legendary. Maintenance and manufacturing built a middle class that could carry a mortgage and still take a weekend. That engine slowed. The roster shifted toward healthcare, education, and service work. Solid jobs, steady schedules, lighter raises. Wage growth trails the costs of owning old homes, and that's the twist locked into every deal. Let's break it down. Pull a map of the old locomotive works and stack it against today's employer grid. You'll see the hospital, schools, and dispersed service clusters where the roundhouse used to be the sun. Now add an inventory heat map around the older neighborhoods. Listings stack near those classic four squares and big porches. Beautiful, abundant, and stubborn to sell. Labor trends since the early 2000s tell the story. The workforce stabilized, but high-wage roles didn't multiply. Meanwhile, repair inflation ran hot. Materials, labor, even basic trades climbed faster than paychecks. Days on market stretched as buyers screened for homes that won't need a new roof and a panel upgrade on the same weekend. And yes, the upgrades matter. HVAC modernization, ductwork in houses built before central air, at 60-amp electrical panels begging for 200-amp service, GFCI where there's only wishful thinking. Appraisal gaps show up because the comps don't reward the full rehab spend, so lenders won't either. You think you're safe at list price? The appraiser trims the value and someone has to bridge the gap. FHA can help the buyer pool, but it also slows the dance. Condition flags trigger repair lists. Handrails, peeling paint, live wires, so contracts stall, get extended, or die. Sellers cut once, twice, then relist. It's like trying to stream a 4K movie on hotel Wi-Fi. You'll get there, but it buffers a lot. So here's the thing. Without a new industry parking hundreds of higher salaries in town, lets value lift stay incremental. A tick up in a good rate week. A give back when inspections start listing acronyms. What looks like a value buy can be value trapped. Cheap now, flat later. Now we go smaller. Coal patch towns where the exit signs outnumber job postings. Number 9, Shamokin. Houses for 5 figures. That's not bait. That's the market. You see $18,000, $27,000, $42,000 and think, I spend more on my car. You're not wrong. But here's the catch. The math isn't generous. It's a warning. Shamokin was built tight for miners. Row after row, short walks, narrow streets, porches facing porches. Company town DNA, efficient and dense. When coal left, the money pipeline shut off. The layout stayed. The payroll didn't. Now it's pinned by basics. Few local employers with scale. An older population on fixed incomes. Services thin out, so a leaky roof becomes a winter emergency, not a weekend project. That pressure sits under every listing photo with Needs TLC. Overlay the old breaker sites on a current vacancy map, and you'll see it. Where the tipples stood, you get clusters of empty parcels and boarded shells. Tax sale notices repeat like a calendar alert. The same blocks cycle through lien lists, auctions, and back again. Population slid. Tax lien sales tick along. Non-owner occupied share climbs as out-of-town buyers chase cheap doors. On paper, it spreads risk. In real life, it spreads neglect. Landlords rotate, tenants churn, and the maintenance backlog grows like a subscription you forgot to cancel. Here's the thing. Investors underestimate the haul away. You don't just demo a bad porch. You pay for disposal by the ton. You don't just swap the panel. You upgrade service, rewire, and add GFCI where the walls fight you. Utility upgrades mean meters, trenching, inspections. Every line item bites. Case studies keep looking the same. A 5-figure buy, a mid-5-figure rehab plan, then surprise structural rot and a sewer line collapse. The budget doubles, the ARV stalls. Demo can cost more than the dirt is worth, so you end up with a clean lot that still won't refinance. Lenders pull back. Insurance quotes balloon in older, higher claim blocks. Deals die for reasons that sound small and bill large. And grants? The pattern holds. Grant programs aimed at revitalizing Shamokin have likely had limited success because they can't replace an entire economy. No catalyst, no floor. Just slow drift as listings recycle and prices sag with each relist. Number 10, Dubois. Steady, small, and strangely stuck. Why do Dubois discounts linger? Because the price is quiet and the economy is quieter. You see a clean 3-bed under what some folks pay for a year of daycare and think, steal. But here's the catch. Demand doesn't sprint here. It strolls. Let's break it down. Dubois lives on a mixed legacy. Light manufacturing, some energy work, and regional retail that pulls from the townships. It's a service hub with a workshop attached. That mix pays the bills, but it doesn't mint a lot of buyers who can take on big rehabs or rising taxes without flinching. The tension is simple. Job growth is modest, in-migration is thin, inventory keeps showing up anyway, so the list pile outruns the pool of qualified buyers. Lenders want clean files. Buyers want clean roofs. Both are rarer than the listings suggest. Fly an aerial overlay in your head. Commercial strips line the corridor. Big box signs, auto parts stores, fast food. Then a few blocks back, you hit residential pockets of older housing stock. Great bones, aging systems. It's like living in a classic car. Everyone compliments it. You still have to replace the carburetor. Research-wise, the theme since 2000 is stagnation. Population flattish. Wages inch, not jump. Lender activity tracks that mood. Applications don't surge, and appraisal hit rates stay choppy when condition issues stack up. An appraiser can't bless a price that the comps and the peeling paint won't support. So here's what you see on the ground. Homes list. They sit, they get cut. Sellers chase a smaller buyer pool that's nervous about rates and repairs. A half-point rate bump sidelines a family for a quarter. A surprise panel upgrade knocks another buyer out before inspection day. Days on market stretch when snow hits and shrink a little in spring. The share of price reductions rises as summer fades. Some listings withdraw, nap through winter, then reappear at a lower number. Infrastructure doesn't help. Healthcare capacity feels tight at times, and broadband outside the core drops from Zoom call to call me later. Without a strong draw, no major university, no anchor employer adding headcount, no transit that widens the commute net, prices don't climb. They hover, they test patience. That's it for today. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more updates you won't want to miss.